Well, then we might as well jump in. First off, I'd love to hear just what made you start this account and what inspired you in the first place.
Well, you have to go back to the first weeks of the pandemic in March, April of 2020. I am on the phone a lot with my girlfriend, now fiance, who's in Vancouver, Canada. So we're separated by a border and a pandemic. We had just been together in early March, and things were shutting down, and we both had to get back home. And we got back home. They closed the border, and it took us a while to even figure out what was going on. But we're on the phone a lot. We're both news junkies. We're watching way too much cable television, and we're just sort of making comments to each other about people's decor, about their backgrounds, and what do you think of that one? How do you like that one? Did you see Michael Beschloss? And yeah, so he's the best so far. I give him a 10, and it just sort of started out let's just create a website. Let's just start rating people's rooms on a 1 to 10 scale, and it took off pretty quickly. So it's gotten to the point where we're working on the official Room Rater handbook. We have a literary agent, and we have a pretty good belief that we will have a book deal to announce in the next month or two.
Excellent. Okay. Well, congratulations. Potentially.
So that will literally be the next chapter. But
right. Yeah. So you said it took off quickly. I mean, did you expect it to garner so much attention?
I thought it was a good idea. And I've done other Twitter accounts, so I had some level of some frame of reference. It took off more quickly than I had anticipated. I thought the idea for it was really solid, and it worked pretty well. And we still, her name, my fiance's name is Jessie, and she and I, she's the Canadian half. And if people know the account, you'll notice that there's a lot of Canadian content on the account, and that's why. So she's still, we're still doing the account together.
So it's most of North America represented there.
Yeah, and we're starting to bring in. We have a contributor who sends us material from Brazil. We've always tried to do a bit from the UK. So we have we've tried to have a little bit of an international appeal to it, but it's still at its our go-to is still U.S. cable television.
Right. I imagine that's probably the main audience. So why rate my Skype room? Why not rate my Zoom room? That seems like the more obvious.
I mean, I have to take responsibility for that. I am like the least technical person you're going to talk to today. I'm 57. I'm a Luddite. I'm a late adopter. A year when we were, coming up with the name, we just call it Room Rater. But why it became Rate My Skype Room, for whatever reason, I was personally more familiar with Skype than Zoom. And I wasn't technically savvy enough or market savvy enough, perhaps, to know that Zoom was more of a thing than Skype was. So that I would call an early pilot error, and that's how most people think of it as Room Rater. If I had to do it over again, I don't think I would do Skype or Zoom in the handle. I would do something just about room rating.
Right. It would be more universal. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just, oh, well.
Right. It's kind of late to change at this point. So what are some of the weirdest things that you've seen in these rooms? Anything stick out? Anything memorable?
Oh, some people have definitely, I've always been a Star Wars fan, but I personally was not familiar with these great big Legos Star Wars Legos kits. Everyone from Justin Trudeau to, I can't think of some of the others, but I've been introduced to some really great Lego sets. I remember with my kids having Legos and stepping on them, but they were always like, little kind of very childlike constructions. I never saw like these great big, those have always been fun. We've seen suits of armor. We always like seeing the kids or the grandkids pop in. We like seeing the photo bombs with dogs.
Right.
Those aren't necessarily, those are just things that, they have an appeal that makes the person instantly relatable. It's good to represent who you are in your room. You don't want them just like, you don't want like 6 pieces or 3 pieces of generic hotel art, and a beige couch. It just, you gotta tell, the room you present to the world is your chance to tell your story, to introduce your story to your audience, whether that be on CNN or whether that's on YouTube. So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, it just, you want your room to reflect who you are.
Right. Speaking, you said hotel art and things like that. Are there any bad trends you see like that? Is that common?
People have their own taste, and we don't really, except in maybe rare circumstances, talk about the art in terms of its relative quality per se. And most of the art that we see is really quite good. There's not much that I would see that I would say is like, bad art. But that's not really what we like, just that people are trying to express themselves with art. We'll leave it for others or maybe another Twitter account to actually judge the art.
Right. It seems like it's more about the effort that they put in rather than the taste. Very,
very much so. We have one guy that we see all the time on Morning Joe. He's like a hedge fund guy. He's a wealthy individual, and you have some lovely prints. You could have told me they were so and so's, and you got them on eBay, or they're very nice. They present well. They're great colors. They're good shapes. I can't really see them clearly enough to really, but they're very effective. Well, he has some, Matisses in his background, but they're actually Matisses.
Oh, well, to me, that would be a 10 out of 10 immediately.
So he has the Matisse room, and it's quite nice, but you don't have to have original Matisses.
Right.
I bought some prints on canvas on Wayfair, for $60 that, there's a Paris scene and a New Orleans scene that I like very much. And I think I paid about $60 or $70 a piece for them. So.
Right. And it's still right. So speaking of the prints that I've got here, how would you rate my room?
Well, this is a really nice room. I like the guitars. You've got another guitar on our left. So you've got some balance there. I like the red piece in the simple red shelving in the corners. It's just, I like the color. It's kind of your big pop of color. The prints back there are really, they're presented well. I like the way that they're arranged on the wall. The only thing I can really fault here is that you need to raise your camera just slightly. I would put like one book under the laptop or whatever you're using. You basically want to be at eye level. So you're going to raise the camera just an inch or two, I'm guessing, and then tilt it down an inch or two. So just reframe a little bit. That's like the most common mistake or shortcoming that people make, is they have the height of the camera wrong. And it's usually too low. Sometimes it's too high, but you basically want it at eye level.
Right. That makes sense. So are we?
Not that I have framed my shot particularly well, by the way. So this is one of those, I just had my second Moderna shot an hour ago. So my morning's mainly been about, becoming fully vaccinated. So I haven't really thought too much about my presentation here, but whatever.
Well, congrats.
This is try to remember also that Jesse and I are not interior decorators. We just pretend to be on Twitter.
And the critic is not the artist. It's two different.
No, not at all. And also, I mean, we just make this shit up. I mean, it's not it's just people just. I mean, let's, this is just fun. I mean, it's not meant to be serious. This is satire. I mean, largely speaking.
Yeah, speaking of kind of the purpose of it, it's obviously lighthearted fun, and you're not certified or anything in room rating. Or have a degree in interior design or anything, but
maybe there should be certificates in room rating. We could do that.
Right.
We could actually do that. We could actually create a certificate, a room rating certificate. We could present some tests, from a real interior decorator and do a earn your room rating certificate.
What do you think this sort of activity gives people, and why it's so popular in the first place?
Well, I think it. Once we started seeing what everyone else lived like and how their rooms looked, and we all started, various aspects of our lives were shifted to online. From our kids' schooling to our business meetings to our personal relationships, everything suddenly went into this world. That's what made it appealing, is that we were showing, what everybody else looked like in their real lives, and it made people relatable. It made some people more interesting, and it's just something I think that everyone could latch, especially at that time.
In the early days, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the account is known not only for being very Canadian, but also for being very political and left-leaning specifically. And I've noticed that you've given some harsh reviews for people like conservatives like Mike Huckabee. I saw that he got a 0 out of 10. Ted Cruz once got a -2, I think. I saw somewhere, and the mug sort of alludes to that a little bit. So why is that? Some people have criticized the account for not being just kind of straight down the middle.
Jeb Bush in particular, yes, he took issue with our. I'm a Democrat. I've come out of a long time ago. In another universe, I was a flunky staffer in the Clinton White House. I worked off and on in politics. I'm chair of a left-leaning political action committee. That's my day job. We principally are known for putting up billboards. Right now we're doing billboards up against Matt Gaetz and Ron DeSantis. We just this morning got one up against Kevin McCarthy up in Bakersfield. That's who I am. My partner, my fiance, is she jokingly refers to herself as a socialist, but that's more of a Canadian thing. That means, she's a strong believer in the sort of a Western democratic form of socialism, where the state actually does a lot of good and provides, healthcare as a basic right. So there's some parts of that agenda that I'm willing to go along with, for sure. Yeah. So we're both left wing. We're not all the way left wing, if you know what I mean. But we're moderate. I would describe myself as a Bill Clinton, Barack Obama Democrat. I'm comfortable with either one of those guys.
Yeah. So when there is controversy, you mentioned Jeb Bush. I didn't see anything about him in particular in my research, but I guess he must have complained. How do you handle that controversy and criticism?
Well, Jeb Bush was in the Washington Post, and he I don't know exactly why he chose to make that the Room Raider account an issue. I can send you a link to the article, but it was like it was fairly early on. I think it was last fall. So it's been quite a while. For the most part, we just kind of try to have fun with it. I mean, we had a lot of fun with the Jeb Bush thing, but we are political. We're Democrats. If somebody else wants to start a, right-wing room rating account, go for it. We still rate rooms. We try to do it. We try to take it not too seriously, and other people should maybe try taking it not too seriously too. What we really do is we've been able to raise quite a bit of money for Native American communities. In particular, we did a series of T-shirts for some of our rooms, some of our kind of our most famous 10 out of 10s, people like Senator Claire McCaskill, former Senator, Michael Beschloss, Jonathan Capehart, Steve Schmidt, John Heilman, Andrew Weissman from the Mueller investigation. They each had a team T-shirt really well. We sold these T-shirts last summer, really at the height of the pandemic. We had started supplying Native American communities with PPE that we did through fundraising. And the Navajo Nation reached out to us and they asked us if we could provide a cloth face mask, reusable, washable face mask for each member of the Navajo Nation. And so I asked, well, how many people is that? And it was 175,000 people. So we found the vendor and we purchased 5 pallets of face masks for $140,000. And that was paid for by the sale of Room Raider swag, like the T-shirts. And, now we're sending art kits to Native American communities. We just sent 1,000 art kits to 8 villages within Navajo Nation. We've also sent art kits to one of the Sioux tribes in South Dakota. So it's a backpack filled with pencils and pens and colored paper and markers and the basic art kit. So kids were at home and in the pandemic, and art's a good thing. And we just were asked at one point by when we were talking about PPE, one of the people in one of the tribes said, I'm a teacher and we have enough PPE, but what we really need is something for these kids. They're stuck at home and they're bored, so that's how the art kits came about. So one of the things that Room Raider does, and one of the things that keeps me doing it, is that we've been able to raise several $100,000 in PPE and art supplies that we send directly to Native American communities. And frankly, I'm into that, and I get off on it. I like doing it. It's fun. It gives me a sense of accomplishment. If they go to the Room Raider account at Rate My Skype Room, right there in our in the Twitter bio, there's a link for the Room Raider shop. And if you click on the Room Raider shop, that explains a little bit lists some of the communities. I think we've sent, Navajo Nation by itself is 4 states, plus North and South Dakota, North Carolina.
I'm also wondering what does the future hold for this account? As we return to offices and as there are fewer people on their home. Well,
I'm not sure that things will ever go back to exactly the way they were. I think networks and pundits themselves have discovered it's a lot easier to you're a pundit, you live in suburban DC somewhere. It actually takes you an hour to get to the MSNBC studio or the CNN studio, and you get there and you might get bumped anyway if something breaks, but you're in the studio for 12 minutes. It took up half your day. It's a lot easier just to turn on your home studio and So I think we're going to go much more to a hybrid where we have a lot more in studio and a lot more people at home. But we've also sort of expanded the scope so we've gone beyond just journalists for, just pundits on MSNBC and CNN. They remain important. There's no reason why they shouldn't, but we do a lot of writers. We like authors, so we go out of our way to find, author events and authors, presenting their first books or their newest book. We do some sports people, we do people that are, to a large extent, who are going to they're still going to be in the home studio.
Do you have any favorite rooms that you've rated? Are there any 11 out of 10s to sort of?
We've tried to be very careful to keep it at 10.
Right. No Spinal Tap 11s.
In our early days, there was a couple where we might have dropped below 0, but we really tried to make it a pretty firm rule that it's 0 to 10. We did a series of rooms at the close of last year. Michael Beschloss, the presidential historian, was our room of the year. And that's still a room that I hold up as a personal favorite. But we have one thing we've noticed, and we do get some criticism, is the rooms have really gotten better just as a whole.
Because now they know that they're going to be rated. They feel the pressure.
Well, we like to, we do take some credit for it, but just in general, if you look at, people back in April and May and June, they would just like stand up against a bare wall with the camera like 3 feet too low, what we call the hostage video. And, you just don't see it as much anymore. In a couple of cases, people are sort of doing it deliberately, which we have fun with. But, for the most part, the average, room has just gotten a lot better. And now there's a lot of really exceptional rooms. Whereas before, there weren't that many that were truly exceptional. There's a lot of really good rooms now.
Yeah, it seems like they've evolved. People realize that they had to invest in them.
Well, everyone's sort of, whether it's because of Room Rater or not, people, have realized, after a year, this is how I'm showing myself to the world. This is how I'm presenting myself.
Right.
Do I want to look like a schmuck with a unmade bed and, a trash can and, or do I want to, present the sort of the most ideal possible me to the world?
Right. Yeah, it is fascinating to check these out every day. I feel like I sit there and I'm a critic as well, looking at all those screenshots. So yeah, it's been really interesting kind of getting to know your process, so to speak, with this. So thank you again for taking the time to talk.